Welcome to XL London. This time next year, ABB FIA Formula E will return to race in the British capital. Join us for this exclusive look at the track with Envision Virgin Racing driver Sam Bird. The course will be a 1.5 mile, 23 turn circuit that runs around the perimeter and access roads for the XL building in London's Docklands. It's a generally flat circuit with 2 steep ramps taking the cars to and from the building's upper and lower levels. So we're here at this very tight chicane, which is going to be turns 6, 7 and then 8 on the exit. Yep. And you just come charging down a ramp here. It's actually fairly steep and you're going to arrive at this apex here for the left-hander. What's it going to be like coming down that sort of steepish descent, heading into a braking zone while you're racing other cars?
I think to start with, we have to start with qualifying. At 250 kilowatts coming down here, really downhill braking zone, it's going to be very, very easy to snatch a front brake and lose a lot of time in this first phase of this chicane. It looks like it's going to be quite tight, especially when you get to mid-corner. If you get a little bit of understeer here, you're going to lose a lot of time mid to exit. So preparation through the first bit is absolutely essential, as it is in any chicane, but I would say with a downhill ascent towards the corner, makes it even more tricky.
Is this going to be an overtaking spot?
Depends on how much energy saving that we're doing. You could catch someone unaware, but I think that this corner is more about perfecting and getting the lap time right, not necessarily about overtaking. It is a kind of area where you can gain a couple of tenths on someone, but I don't think it's an overtaking zone.
We're here at turn 9, which is a 90-degree right-hander. We've come through that very tight chicane where we think, it's going to be quite tricky, see what's happening there in the race. Now, the key here, I'm guessing, is going to be the exit there onto that long straight, because we've got a very key overtaking point down at turn 10. So what do you think is going to be the thinking in terms of qualifying the race?
Yeah, I mean, now that we've walked down here from 6, 7, 8 and now here to 9, for me, it's quite evident that 6, 7, 8, you're going to be setting someone up to then getting a really good drive out of 9 and trying to force an overtake at the end of the straight here in towards turn 10. This corner looks like a typical Formula E kind of corner, medium speed, 90-degree corner, all about carrying the minimum speed, getting a great exit, and then hopefully getting a little bit of a slipstream effect into the next corner. And I believe the next one's going to be where the overtaking is going to be done.
Or do you think maybe we might see someone try a little cheeky move just here if they think, I've got a good run there and I can maybe run them wide on the exit and they won't be able to get me back down the far end there?
You could do, but the energy saving that you do here is going to be nowhere near as big as the energy save that people do at the end of the straight. So the lift and coast phase here will be quite small. These days it's getting harder and harder to overtake people because everybody's just getting so much better at the energy save phase. I would see this as an opportunity to get close and then utilize using the energy wisely at the end of the straight rather than forcing a move here and then having to defend down there as well, because then you lose in 2 areas.
We've come down the long straight here and we're at turn 10 and we think it's going to be maximum high speed, big stop, where we're going to see lots of overtaking in the race.
Yeah, I think so. It's not the longest straight, but it's just enough to have a sniff down the inside. It's a tight left-hand hairpin here, and the next corner will be a tight right-hand hairpin there. It reminds me a little bit of Santiago from 2019 season 5, where overtaking could happen into the first one, not necessarily the second one, but for sure, so far, this is definitely the best opportunity to do some overtaking.
Now, obviously, today, as we're here a year ahead of the event, you can't really see where the track's going to go, but it is going to loop back on itself. Do you think just maybe, as we saw in Santiago, there's quite a fair bit of action in the race at the final corner, a bit of contact, stuff like that. Could that be a potential flashpoint there, that second hairpin there?
Yeah, I don't see why not, especially in the mid-pack early on in the race. If there's a lot of cars in a row, the chances are someone might hit someone who might hit someone, and it's a little bit like a concertina effect of people just bumping into each other. And then we saw a couple of people spinning because of that. People getting it wrong and then going wide. People get forced into the wall on the outside out of the next one. Yeah, that could happen. But in terms of pure overtaking, this corner where we stood here, this is the one.
Okay, Sam, so we've come down from the overtaking spots up there at turn 11 and 12. There's a little chicane that will take you out of that car park, and then you're onto this road as you come down here by the Prince Regent DLR station. Now, as we can see behind us, it's quite a pinch point there. It's going to be fairly narrow. So are you thinking it might be sort of just following each other through this long straight, setting up for the next braking point?
I can imagine, yeah. So you've done your overtake into the main overtaking point there, the hairpin left. You've done the hairpin right. You've done a chicane. And now I can imagine it will be single file. This next sequence sort of bends round to the right, goes around the Excel, and then we're going to turn left. That could be an overtaking point, but for now, I reckon it's a little bit too narrow to get anything done through this section where we are right now.
We know there's quite a lot of work that's going to be taking place on the track over the next year or so. As you can see in the background, there's a nice big speed bump that I'm sure you guys wouldn't appreciate in your racing cars. How does that affect the setup in terms of like the camber and the bumps? What have you got to be thinking about?
It's really, really difficult for the engineers and for us. I mean, we go to these different circuits all the way around the world, and every single place there's 50 different tarmacs based around patches and parts of the circuit. There's undulation, there's camber, there's some places there's concrete and tarmac. There's all things to look out for, and it's very difficult to extract the maximum out of a setup when all these things are happening. We have to compromise in some areas to get the best out of other areas.
We've come down through that long straight run where we're going to be picking up speed. As you guys can see in the background there, we've got a hotel here. This time next year, the track, there's going to be lots of improvement work done, and it's going to lead us into this left-hander here, turn 16, which will take us onto the following sequence of corners. So by this point, you'll be doing fairly high speed.
Yep.
Potential overtaking point, or is it just another one about getting right for the next sequence?
Exactly. I don't see this one as an overtaking point. I see it as an opportunity to get closer. We've now got a sequence where we've just turned left. We'll go right, keep on turning right. Then the next left-hander is a longer sweeping left-hander. I see that as the next potential overtaking point.
As you come up to that next sequence of corners, it's a series of sort of apexes going right. I imagined it as sort of Formula E's version of that turn 8 turn.
Turkey. I thought you'd say that. I thought you'd say Turkey.
How do you
I
think about
see
that?
it's a little bit, you know the new sequence at New York?
Yes.
To end the lap where it turns right and keeps on turning right? It's a little bit similar to that. Slightly different radius, but similar feel. I get what you mean about Turkey, but slightly different speed level.
And what's it like in the car for going through those sequences where you're sort of turning in the same sort of point, but you're hitting corner after corner after corner? Is that different from a normal Formula car to a Formula E car?
No, it's very similar, although you're very conscious of the outside tyre temp. When you get after like probably the second apex, you'll be realising that the loaded rear tyre is probably screaming at you, not very happy. It's very hot, it wants to start sliding around a bit. If you've been able in the race period to look after your rear tyres a little bit better, then it's areas like that you can make the difference on a tyre temp, and that'll pay dividends later on in the race.
Right, Sam, we're coming back now to the final sequence of corners. We've got a right-hander here that's going to take you up that very steep ramp. We're going to head back into Excel. What is that going to be like in a Formula E car?
Honestly, I have no clue what that's going to be like. When I saw it, I said to you, are we actually going to be driving up that? I couldn't quite believe it. It depends whether it's going to be flat out over it and brake, or whether we're going to be braking uphill. If we're going over it, almost jumping and then braking, it's going to be unbelievable. If we're braking up it makes it a little bit easier, but the transition phase from going uphill to flat means there might be quite a bit of understeer there as we turn in towards the apex, so you might have to anticipate your turning.
Now, Formula E's done undulating tracks before. I'm thinking Rome, Bern, where Formula E was recently. How much different is that? Is that the steepest you guys will ever have done?
That's the Eau Rouge of Formula E so far. That's really, really steep, especially in such a small area. The gradient there is very, very high. I'm quite excited to give that a go. We haven't experienced anything like that yet in Formula E.
Okay, Sam, we've now walked most of the track and we've finally come inside to this massive pool here at Excel London. What do you think it's going to be like? I appreciate we're a year out and there's not all the grandstands and the pit garages and everything in place, but from your point of view, driving a Formula E car through this massive hall, what do you think it might be like?
I mean, I've done the Autosport show before, and you drive in the big hall there, and that's all fun. You've got a big arena, a big grandstand, lots of people, and it's really fun. Imagine that when you're actually doing it at a world championship level. It's going to be amazing. I think the whole concept here to race at Excel, both inside and outside, is breaking boundaries. Nobody's ever done that before, no single-seater, certainly. So I'm excited to see what it's like.
And now we had a little bit of insight in sort of what it might be like to have everything set up indoors recently in Burn, where the paddock was for all the cars, and then you guys went down to the pits and did all the lap there. But here at XL London, it's going to be everything together in one site. We're going to have the E-Village, we're going to have the grandstands, you guys, the start finish line, the track, the whole shebang, as it were. What do you think people coming to this event, what are they going to get out of it on that weekend?
The good thing about Formula E is that it screams accessibility to the fans. You don't get that in many forms of motorsport these days. I feel like the fan, with the way that motorsport has gone, has to be a little bit removed from, not the action, but in terms of seeing their favourite driver, meeting their favourite driver, getting to see the car. Especially in European racing, that's where it's gone. Formula E has torn that idea up, torn that concept up, and we're accessible. So fans here will be able to get close to the cars, get close to the drivers, teams, etc. And I think that it's going to be a really cool atmosphere. I think it's going to be very noisy. There's going to be lots going on, lots of things to do. Come down, come and have a watch.
Now you've seen almost all of the track. Unfortunately, there's actually a show going on behind that wall over there, so we couldn't do the whole start-finish line today. What do you make of it? Now you've sort of seen the way the corners are going to potentially go, but obviously we'll have the barriers, it might be a bit narrower. I'm sure it will look a lot prettier once all the work's been completed and everything's installed and up to Formula E's great standards. So what are you expecting now you've seen it?
I mean, what I like so far is that there's many different kinds of corners, which is great. There are genuine overtaking opportunities, so long as they're wide enough for the current Gen 2 car. That's what's important, is overtaking and fighting and battles and things like that. So if it's wide enough, which I hope it will be in those certain areas, like turn 10, I believe, we're going to have a great race. It's going to be a great day.
Excellent. And now obviously you've been in Formula E since the beginning, so you remember very well the Battersea races where you won a race in season 1. Obviously it's completely over the other side of the city out there in Battersea, but how does it compare? Is it a completely different event, one imagines?
It's completely different to Battersea. Battersea was a very fast circuit with fast chicanes and high-speed corners, but my God, the camber on the road was crazy. I can remember they actually had to change the circuit going into turn 1, I think it was in season 1, day 1, and then grind the circuit down a little bit because we were taking off mid-corner due to a bump in the camber. Here, there's less camber. It is a bit bumpy in places, changes of tarmac. We don't know what's going to be new tarmac, what's going to be kept just yet. Presumably in here it's going to be nice and flat and smooth, so can ride heights afford to be lower? Maybe.
Thank you very much for joining us today to take a look at the track. This time next year, ABB FIA Formula E will be back in London. We'll see you then.